Hiya folks, it's me Len, and today we're going back into the Spyro series in a video that I've been saving for a good chunk of this year. Wait a good looking hot minute, you may be saying, but it's highly unlikely because people don't say stuff like that out loud. Didn't you just cover the whole series last year? And to that I say, yeah baby, yeah! This video will mainly be a look back to my reviews. I swear I'm not milking this, I just really like Spyro, okay? So, with CTR having the big purple lug along for the ride in the current Grand Prix, and Spyro coming out on Steam and Nintendo Switch within a couple of days, well, when I'm writing this video anyway, and at this point, well, it's out now, so this script is just a bit disjointed and outdated. I feel like it's finally time to count down my personal favourite and least favourite games in the series from worst to best. Alright, so here are the rules. Number 1, all games are allowed, meaning the Legend of Spyro games are of course allowed, and the GBA spin-off games will be included as well. However, there will be no Skylanders cause, well, isn't it obvious? Number 2, Spyro Reignited Trilogy will not be counted as one entity. I will include both versions as one game. Number 3, this is sort of a redundant thing to say, but yet some people still don't understand that what I'm saying in this video will be my opinion only. Nothing more. So if Spyro Orange is your favourite game of all time or whatever, well, good for you. Just, I ask that you accept my opinion and don't think too much of it and, I don't know, cry in the comments about how your favourite game wasn't number 1. Not that I've ever had that before, but still, like, come on. So that's it. Let's stop dragging and get the Spyro grass smoking. You know, why not even try? I'm sorry you'll have to put up with me, like, I don't know, just my YouTube channel's been going down. Ooh boy. Yep, I still don't like this game. Okay, look, one thing I should mention about my review was the fact that I was heavily negative on the game. And I still sort of am. Go figure. I want to make one thing clear. I loved The Legend of Spyro New Beginning. Some people didn't care much for it, but I genuinely enjoyed what it did for a reboot. But as the years passed on and I started getting back into Spyro, I discovered this game through a History of Spyro video. But never did I ever really want to get back into it because, well, it looked more of the same and even less so. Pretty much being a complete slog and boring. And when I eventually got to play it, it was the same and boring. The Eternal Night is the only Spyro game I genuinely felt bored and a little drained of energy by the end of it. The game is a beat 'em up slash hack and slash type of game like the previous one, but as you play more into the game, you begin to notice that the combat is extremely shallow, and the gameplay is just underwhelmingly dragged out to extend game time when not really much is happening story-wise or even gameplay-wise. This entire game is extremely linear much like before, but even now, the game just feels like you're going down a straight path almost all the time. It doesn't feel as much as a grandiose adventure as it should feel like. The music itself is just kinda there. I personally liked the work in A New Beginning as it set the atmosphere really well, and had me really invested in whatever level that we had been set in. Eternal Night's music puts me and my long flowing locks to sleep. It often doesn't seem like there is even a soundtrack there, to be honest, which I guess could be used to great effect in the forest at points, but say inside the Well of Souls it can be really boring and just drags with an occasional sound here and there to break immersion. The voice acting cast does an okay job, but for some reason a lot of them sound like they just woke up or are extremely exhausted after a long day of work or something. Also, another thing, this game is so tonally inconsistent narratively. Sometimes Billy West Sparks will make a funny joke or funny pirate parrot will fall over dramatically after being attacked, and it just won't work because they're trying to take this new reboot, which was initially supposed to be a darker and more serious tone, into a lighter one so it won't be criticised for being too dark or ridiculously serious. Which I find to be an absolutely stupid point when this type of storytelling format can be used to great effect. See games like Sonic Adventure 2 or even Devil May Cry. The core story and graphics art style, however, were the only things that kept me going. It showed us great character development for both Spyro and Cinder with the beginnings of a new threat and adventures from beyond the final boss of the first game. It seemed so promising at first glance. But the best bits of the story we got were the exposition in the intro and the climax in the ending. And despite what happens in the middle, these two parts of the game feel impactful. Somehow. and it's this aspect of the game that kept me going till the very end. And if that's the case, then I can say this game did at least one thing right. And as for the graphics, it's breathtaking for a PS2 game. Eternal Night has a unique nighty aesthetic throughout the entire game, and it's really pleasing to the eye. Plus I love the gothic architecture in some levels. It's no Cinder's Tower from the first game, but it'll do. So yeah, sorry to say to anybody who genuinely does enjoy this game, and I may be able to get why after coming to grips with the game after 2 years, but as of right now, I just don't see what you're seeing. But apart from the intro and the ending, the only thing I can remember is the Crash Bandicoot Easter egg in that one ice level. That's it. So yeah, The Legend of Spyro the Eternal Night, I don't like it. Sorry, moving on. Okay, this game isn't too good either. So when it comes to a crossover game between two big icons, how do you do it? A racing game? A fighting game? Heck, what about just going in with a platformer game that shares values between both sides and mashes them into one big extravaganza, making it one of the greatest crossover games since Garfield and Sonic Mega Pack. Nah, minigames galore, baby. Woo, woo, wee, woo, woo, woo. Well, to be fair, even if this were to be the case, it can still be pulled off pretty well. Just look at the Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. This game is a GBA minigame collection featuring both Crash Bandicoot and Spyro going between each other's worlds to stop Dr. Neocortex from Crash's world, and of course Ripto from Spyro's world. It's not really all that good, but not exactly all that bad either. This game isn't anything amazingly special, but just because it's exactly that, that is why it's so unanimously hated. It should have been so much more than just a bunch of minigame collections. And pretty lackluster minigames at that. God, look at these cutscenes, they just scream GIFs, like, fucking JPEGs, are you serious? The music is pretty okay, I guess. I mean, yeah. It manages to capture the same vibe and music from A Hero's Tale, but I'd rather listen to that game's soundtrack, admittedly. The game's minigames feature stuff like button mashing doors open, flying through automated courses, yada. Are you serious? This could have been an absolutely great opportunity to bring back some of the classic minigames from Spyro 2 and 3 and put them in this game as a throwback of sorts, and you give us this? It's all kind of boring, to be honest. Who would have thought that a game featuring both Spyro and Crash meeting would be here? It's sort of underwhelming, and it really had potential to be a banger platformer game for a console release. But unfortunately, it's just a forgettable GBA spin-off title that's clearly just not a Spyro or Crash game. In fact, Spyro Orange is way worse than Crash Bandicoot Purple because, well, look at this. A 2D Spyro game? I'm not against that, but Christ, it looks... Never mind. The first entrance into the new territory from PlayStation consoles and out into handhelds and stuff like the Nintendo brand was this. Spyro Season of Ice from Digital Eclipse. The main story of this game is pretty similar to Spyro 2's, is a really pathetic looking villain called Grendor. Are you serious? That thing looks like a Muppet. Threatens Spyro and friends when they're trying to enjoy a holiday in Dragon Shores. I mean, I like the consistency in writing, but something a bit more definitive would be cool. Apart from going on holiday for the 50 millionth time. The game itself is more or less a rough transition from the 3D perspective of the PlayStation 1 trilogy to an isometric pseudo 3D platformer. It's more or less just Spyro the Dragon just made into a GBA game, honestly. The game looks and controls fine enough, but a lot of the time it can be a real pain in the rear to actually determine where to jump and how to land, since the platforms don't quite line up well enough for isometric platforming on a 16-bit handheld. That and Spyro's floaty jumping doesn't help much either, since he slides around in midair like a stick of butter in a frying pan. The game even takes on the ambitious flight segments on the GBA by having Spyro fly in the Star Fox styled on-rail shooter, and admittedly, they are my favourite parts of Season of Ice. They can hurt your thumbs like hell sometimes because you have to be so responsive, but it's still fun and a good challenge. That's all I can ask for. Plus, Spyro on the toilet seat. You know this is going to be great. The music being on the GBA is actually not too bad. Heck, I even like a few tracks from this game since it sounds like they're trying their hardest to make it sound just as good as Spyro 3's soundtrack. There isn't too much I can say about this game, to be fair. It's just a handheld Spyro game to test waters for the future of the series, which is fine, but it suffers a bit from awkward views and having the camera a bit too close to Spyro, which, despite having the ability to control the camera, can still be disorientating, and the platforms being a bit too few and far between. Overall, not half bad for a first attempt, but it surely hasn't aged well in my opinion. So now on to much better GBA titles for the series. Spyro Adventure was a pretty fun take on a more interconnected and open world Spyro game, much like how Spyro Hero's Tale had built itself around. The game is much like the Season of games, but instead incorporates its own elements like an RPG style of collecting items and the aforementioned open world connecting into one. And it's good. It manages to keep the same Spyro feel while shaking things up a bit with new abilities for Spyro to use, adding Agent 9 and Sergeant Bird as playable characters, but Digital Eclipse even went the extra mile to create some brand new one-off NPC characters, which is pretty neat. The art style from Digital Eclipse really shines the best in this game out of all the GBA releases they've done for Spyro. The sand on the beaches and the ice in the glaciers, for example, look really eye-catching in particular. In terms of music, it's okay. It's not up to much when compared to His Majesty, drummer of the Police Stuart Copeland's excellent tracks on the previous games, but since this is on the GBA, it's got its fair share of good tunes, not gonna lie. So all in all, this game still holds up pretty well in my opinion for a Spyro on the go. Some may even say a Spygo. Eh?
Well, that was fucking dreadful.
And right up next we have the sequel to A Hero's Tale. On Nintendo DS no less. Oh sweet, that rhymed. Spyro Shadow Legacy. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. This game is such an oddball. On one hand they were beginning to see that the original Spyro series was beginning to decline in sales since the travesty event of the Dragonfly in PS2 put a kid in the hospital. That's not an edgy joke by the way, it actually happened. And then they made this. Spyro Shadow Legacy, the sequel to Spyro A Hero's Tale. A console game. In this game they decided to make a combat oriented RPG platformer hybrid. And in some ways, it actually feels like a predecessor to the Legend of Spyro series. Yeah, look at this gameplay. You can tell they were trying to make Spyro more mature. The main concept of this game is more or less similar to Season of Ice. They're all resting in Dragon Shores and Spyro sees his friends off as they go home after a vacation in Avalar. But after Spyro goes back to enjoying the rest of his vacation, the lands are plunged into darkness as these stylized monsters begin to take over as Spyro's friends are kidnapped and imprisoned. Oh yeah, and Red is here too, but for some reason he's good halfway through the story now. Yeah, I don't get it either, it seemed kinda rushed. Spyro then sets out to take down the Shadow Realms' boss, which is the, well, Sorcerer, a dragon that bears a lot of resemblance to Malifaux might I add. And throughout the story we actually get to see some pretty cool environments and artwork, and there's a lot to explore in this world, especially for a DS game. The game itself takes the idea of having an isometric style platformer from Digital Eclipse's Spyro GBA trilogy, but instead takes a new spin on the formula by making the perspective have a more top-down view. Yeah, this can only be so good sometimes. Like I said, the game also allows Spyro to take on enemies head on. Or rather tail on, as he can use those as well as his wings, tail and horns when melee combat. Also more the reason for you Adam to smash Masahiro Sakurai. Please do that. Nah, you're working hard, I understand. Don't worry about it. But if you can, Spyro would be really cool. The fire breath and charging are still here, but they take more of a back seat in this game sadly. But hey, I'd rather they still be here regardless. Dawn of the Dragon. Spyro Orange. Dawn of the Dragon. Sorry, did that sound like words? The game also takes on the idea of having one big overworld to add to the adventure feel, and it does it very well in my opinion. Still, old habits die hard as the level design can be hard to determine where to land sometimes. The music is... Ah, dear mother of Guy Fury! What in the name of the five singing laddies is this? This isn't a survival horror Spyro game, guys. Is it? Anyway, apart from that ear-wrenching tune, the rest of the music is meh. It's there and it does what it does, but it's rather underwhelming for a Spyro game, admittedly. And it doesn't hold a candle to its predecessor's music for certain, especially A Hero's Tale, since this is the sequel to that very game. So overall, it's pretty fun. And if you like the idea of having a Spyro RPG on the go, then by all means go and get it. Oh, and here we are with the game everyone absolutely hates to hate. Spyro Enter the Epilepsy, I mean Enter the Dragonfly. Yeah, this one, oh boy, whew. Oh yeah, oh, damn boy.
Boy. Damn, boy, he's thick, boy! That's a thick-ass boy! Damn! But
why is it given a higher spot than it deserves? And how dare you put it above Spyro Orange, the pinnacle of all Spyro? Well, one, yes, you're right. Spyro Orange is a pretty great game. And two, I don't know, I still kinda enjoy the game somewhat. Sort of. And at one point I had the brass haggis to admit that I actually liked it a bit more than Spyro 3 and PS1. And you know what? I still kinda did. And do. Alright, listen, it's not the case anymore, but just please put down your sharpened copies of Spyro 3 and spare my life, alright? So Enter the Dragonfly takes place after the events of Spyro 3 with the baby dragons receiving their dragonflies because it's a tradition in the dragon culture, I guess. And out of nowhere, Mr. Riptonius and his two dipshits, it's an anagram for dipshits, okay. Come in and scatter all the dragonflies across the realm, leaving Spyro and Co to go and set out to get them back. The actual game itself is pretty... well, it's structured pretty soundly. I mean, it's similar to that of Spyro 2 than 3, to be honest. The way how I prefer it, and I still stand by that if you ask me. Spyro himself controls pretty okay, if a little bit sloppy. And yes, the glitches are ridden absolutely everywhere. But the game doesn't have any other playable characters, which is pretty strange. And instead it's just Spyro running through these big, even more open than before levels. Sometimes it can be pretty cool and you can actually glide to new places and have this really nice feeling go around the back of your head to say, wow, this is what a next-gen Spyro game can feel like. And other times you, well, crop circle country, that's all I can say. The game runs pretty okay, I guess, most of the time on GameCube, with a few areas being the absolute worst frame rate seen in any Spyro game. Again, see crop circle country. The game mostly revolves around the dragonflies, and they can be a bit of a hassle at time to collect. And they're always mocking and running away from you for whatever reason, despite the fact you're going to get them. Or rather, absolutely no reason because you're trying to save them. The music for the game is the last time Spyro would ever get any music provided by Stuart Copeland. And it was a pretty darn good soundtrack too. As to be expected, I mean, Stuart Copeland. The game for the time looked really good, but perhaps a bit too good since the game has a lot of hassle trying to run it. I still really like the skyboxes and, well, yeah, that's about it. It looks more or less the same as the PlayStation 1 titles, but with better graphics. And dare I say, even today it still doesn't look too bad. It's just animated so weirdly. Enter the Dragonfly isn't very good, I'll admit. But I still find things to enjoy about it, admittedly. And no, I wouldn't consider it to be a guilty pleasure, as some people would say. It's such a weird saying, guilty pleasure. I mean, if you enjoy something, you just enjoy something. You don't have to be guilty about it. It's a weird feeling I have towards this game. I had promise and a burning ambition, but that promise wasn't fully realised, unfortunately, because the game's developers have been cut way too short by Universal. Yeah, great job, guys. Maybe if you treated your developers fairly, you'll have a full game. Oh well, Enter the Dragonfly. Barely knew thee. Now this is the ideal Spyro handheld experience, Chief. Spyro Season of Flame. Hey, listen, let me tell you. Hey, sit down and I'll sell this game to you. Listen, give me 5 minutes. Season of Flame is pretty much Season of Ice, but with more precise controls, more mini-games, more collectibles, and, well, okay, maybe not swimming, but that's okay. The main plot of the game is Spyro and Co coming back from vacation. So many Spyro stories about vacations. Possibly from Season of Ice, I don't know. And it has Ribto come back with Crushing Gulp to steal all the fireflies and harness their power. This is just Enter the Dragonfly, but almost not at all. Despite running off the GBA sound chip, the music in this game sounds a lot more like the PlayStation Trilogy's tracks from Stuart Copeland, with some pretty whimsical hub worlds and cool level themes. The art style and graphic quality is much better over the last game, as it outdoes any environment that the previous game had done. And it looks like it came straight out of a children's storybook. It's very appealing. Season of Flame is a much better Season of Ice all in all. Not too much I can really say about everything that has appeared last time, and it's all present here and pretty much either done better or added on to. It's a fun time when you're out in the go or Spider-Man away from home. That joke didn't work as well as I hoped it did. Ah yes, if you watched my review in this game last year, you'd know that this bundle of trauma sits just right with me. Well, at least back then it did. The Legend of Spyro Dawn of the Dragon is a grand slam of a Spyro game, and by that it means it ends the Legend of Spyro trilogy off on the highest note that could perfectly be possible. And it perfectly tugs at fans' heartstrings. Dawn of the Dragon story-wise sees the two dragons, Spyro and Cinder, teaming up after the events of the Eternal Night and taking on a new threat in Malefor, or as previously known, the Dark Master. The game plays a lot like the previous games, but now with funky mode and the kitchen sink included, meaning we have new combat moves, dodging and blocking for melee attacks, and now all new elemental abilities that kick Eternal Night's nocturnal ass. With its effective upgrade tree that allows for harder hitting attacks, unlockable moves, and overall, it's good, alright? That's the point, it's good. The music in this game is still pretty cool, with some awesome choir vocals from former Spyro members Gabe Mann and Rebecca Newell, and the atmosphere gets pretty damn serene sometimes. See stuff like Twilight Falls and, well, Warfang. The graphics, well, as a case of Sonic Hero Syndrome, which is when a game looks shinier than both my shoes and my future. Sometimes they still look like they're wrapped in cling film, and others, it can look pretty darn good. If a little glowy and having way too much bloom for its own good. So yes, Dawn of the Dragon is still a great final Spyro game, and not counting Reignited or Skylanders, this is the last thing we ever saw Spyro in terms of mainline Spyro games anyway. Hopefully that changes pretty soon and we get to see Spyro on Adventures again, but as for the reboot, this was a good way to end it off. And here we have the game that threw a lot of people off balance back when it came out. Probably because it played Requiem of a Dream in its trailer back in 2005 at E3. Or rather those that were still there by the time of A Hero's Tale when it came out, because a lot of sales for the series were going down at that point, and Vivendi, the license holder for Spyro at the time, had no choice but to reboot the series for an all-new audience. And I thought it was great. The story in this game mainly revolves around Spyro's rise from an inexperienced dragon whelpling and fulfilling his destiny as a purple dragon, all the while saving dragon elders who've been kidnapped and take on the corrupted dragon Cinder. Wow, this is oddly similar to the first game. I mean, think about it. Dragons that have been captured and you have to take on this big, massive threat at the end of the game. The gameplay of this game plays almost nothing like the old Spyro games. That meaning only the glide, the charge, and kinda the head bash are back. Spyro this time around has a life bar, a mana bar, and an upgrade tree along with melee combat moves. And unlike the Eternal Night, it's actually kind of fun to use these attacks. I mean, for some people it might get a little repetitive, but for me, this wasn't so much of a bad idea. This game's soundtrack is a major departure from organs and synthesizers, or even the more upbeat cartoony style of A Hero's Tale. This soundtrack is much more choir based and has a more cinematic approach. Some tracks can make the environment stand out really damn well, and it can even be pretty serene and atmospheric at times. The voice acting cast, love it or hate it, is a dream come true for some fans of big hit movies. For example, Spyro is being voiced by Elijah frickin' Wood, as well as Gary Oldman voicing Ignitus. So A-list actors from Lord of the Rings and the Dark Knight trilogy are joining in to voice act for the Spyro games. It's a big ask, but this would be awesome for new fans who wanted to get into Spyro, and maybe if some fans previously were looking forward to this, they would be looking forward to this. The game looks beautiful for the time, and you gotta give kudos to the people who previously worked on the Thai games, since they really have a knack for a great art style and translating it into a game really well. The Legend of Spyro overall in hindsight wasn't a bad idea at the time, since we got a fan favourite character in Cinder, and a great lore to tell with this new cast of Spyro characters. The trilogy was a fun experiment, and I'm glad it happened personally. But I am more than glad that despite how bleak it looked, we got the original Spyro back after all this time. Ah, the humble beginning. Spyro the Dragon was made by Insomniac, as we all know. They had one chance to make it work, it sold millions, etc, etc. You really don't need me to tell you how it went down. To start off the Spyro games, this game in particular doesn't start off with our main character, but rather his world. And then you see him after the main story plot point has been made, allowing Spyro to say something and set out to do some epic gamer collectathoning. You beat the game and, oh look, guess we got ourselves a good one. Not the best, but hey, it's the start of something good. Spyro at heart is a platformer, but it does build itself around collecting objects like say Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie that came out before it. Spyro can breathe fire, charge, glide, roll. Alright, that last one isn't very helpful, I'll admit. But everything else like the power-up fairies, the supercharge, and more just add more layers to this big wedding cake of a game. Yes, I'm overpraising this. What of it, huh? Huh? You really you gonna wanna fight? You wanna come over to the house so we can fight about it? Let's go. This game's music is. Stuart Copeland put his heart, soul, head, shoulders, kitchen sink, driver's license, and an arm and a leg to make this OST the absolute definitive and distinct sound that Spyro could have had at the time. If you've heard the excellent soundtrack, you know exactly what I'm talking about, okay? You don't need me to tell you. Despite the fact I have previously, and you know what, whatever. Spyro the Dragon also was a visual marvel at the time, with the PlayStation not exploding while rendering far distances and some nice looking textures and graphics that feel very rustic and fantasy-like. And if you're playing the reignited version, the dragons you collect in this game all have very personal and unique designs that separate them all from one another, making them feel like real people within the Dragon Realms and not just another random person on the sidewalks. Spyro 1, despite being the most simplistic of the Spyro games, still has a great idea on how to go about making a solid collectathon platformer, and if you are looking at getting into the Spyro series, this is where to begin. Heck, just go buy Reignited Trilogy already. I mean, 3 games in one, listen, that's the best deal you're gonna get out of this series. Yeah, big surprise, right? For all the shit I gave Year the Dragon back last year for its character collecting and playable characters, yada yada, I had a Persona 5 change of heart, and decided, you know what, the Spyro 3 I enjoyed so much more was the reignited version. And I will happily explain why everything I had an issue with has been pretty much quenched and made better. First of all, the gameplay is just as good as it was in 2, but with more bells and whistles added. Now, granted, not all of them are good and some still infuriate me to this day, like the Bentley boxing and some of the first person missions. But with the new great controls, characters like Bentley, Agent 9, and especially Sergeant Bird feel so much better and actually are controllable this time around. The character collecting to power up the hovercrafts, whirligigs and rockets to progress further to new lands was one thing I said I absolutely hated, but now I don't seem to mind it much anymore. I mean, yeah, I still mean what I said about the original game and the fact that it just feels like a slog to collect everything or even the minimal amount. And the reason being for that is just because the characters in that version of the game kinda suck to play as, in my opinion. Spyro Reignited's version just fixes everything I ever had a problem with, and despite how I like the structure of Spyro 1 and 2 more, where it relies on you being more open and being free to roam to your heart's content, I just like Spyro 3 a little bit much more now since it refined the things I hate and made it into something I now kinda love. I enjoy Agent 9's third person mode more than this crappy traditional platformer mode. I enjoy Bentley about as much as the same, admittedly. Sheila feels a lot better in my opinion with her cool momentum physics and her jumps and her kicks being more reliable this time. And finally, Sergeant Bird. Thank good fricking hecking lord, he is much better and I actually enjoy him now. How do you even go about fixing something as broken as it was before? Like, whoa. I also really enjoy the soundtrack of this version so much more than before too, admittedly. Yeah, I said it. Anyway, I really like the new remixes that Stefan Vankov provided. Especially tracks like Evening Lake, the skate park and Enchanted Towers, and the final battle against the Sorceress. The graphics? Well, it's Reignited Trilogy. What need I say more about this complete eye candy store of a game? All of this combined makes for one grand adventure for Spyro, and I am now able to appreciate what it is rather than harping on what I disliked beforehand and what it isn't. Good on you guys, Zanzaru. Or was it Toys for Bob? Whoever did it. You guys truly saved this game for me. Oh yeah, Zanzaru, now go get Sony to allow you guys to make Sly Cooper 5, damn it. We've waited almost a decade at this point. Oh yeah, that's right, my second favourite in the series isn't even a part of the Insomniac trilogy. Wanna fight about it? You wanna fight? Well, it wouldn't be the first time, I can say that much. Eurocom Entertainment Software made one last attempt to revive Spyro. And they kinda did. I mean, it sold over 60,000 copies overall, so yeah, I guess it didn't do so well compared to the previous ones, especially 3 with it being the bestseller at that moment in time. And that is a damn shame too, because this is definitely one of the most unique Spyro games we've got thus far in my opinion. Spyro A Hero's Tale plays vaguely like the past games, except now we have both Charge and Flame swapped over for some weird ass reason. However, it's not that big of a deal if you're playing on, say, the Xbox like I am. This game attempts to expand the usual Spyro formula by having the world be one big plane to run on, much like the Jak and Daxter games. Along with that, you also have new additions of new items that can be brought over by Moneybags' store. And along with that, you can also get new items from Moneybags' store. A really cool new addition if you ask me. The art style of this game is also really well crafted in my opinion. I love some of the one-off NPCs we get in this game, like the Ice Queen, Otto, Tina the Hyena, Lily the Mermaid, and the multiple Dragon Elders we learn new stuff from. And then there's the new playable character Blink that acts much like a mix between Bomberman and Mega Man with his explosives and laser wrist shooter thing. As well as returning ones like a fully playable Hunter with his bow and arrow from Spyro 2, Sparks being an on-rail shooter, Sergeant Bird taking over for new speedways, and finally these turret sections. Well, it was kind of a fad for platformers at the time, and even Spyro had been doing it before it was even a trend, so I guess the originals were also to blame. That is if you hate those, I personally don't mind them. The voice acting in this game is, well, different. Jess Hornell, the new voice for Crash and the voice of several cartoon characters, is now voicing Spyro, Hunter, Red, and Moneybags all at once in this game. This guy is crazy at what he does. I didn't even know until I reviewed this game last year that Jess did all these voices, and he of course does a pretty good job. The other actors of note are pretty good too, with people like the voice actress Queen Tara Strong herself voicing Ember, Blink, and Zoe, and Nasty's voice actor Michael Actually, you know what?
Michael Gough.
There we go, finally said it right. Anyway, Michael has literally been voicing him in every Spyro game he's ever been in, which is pretty commendable since he's so dedicated to getting the role. And he also voices, well, Nasty Nork, the Professor, and Sergeant Bird. The music in this game is pretty solid with the more laid-back cartoon-inspired tracks like The Dragon Realms, Cloudy Domain, and Coastal Remains, to some more atmospherical tracks like the Volcano Levels, Stormy Beach, and Inside of Red Slayer. So overall, Spyro A Hero's Tale's got to be one of the most underrated Spyro games there's ever been. If not, then certainly underappreciated, since some elements from this game crop back up in Reignited Trilogy, like the heavy emphasis on an art style, smoother controls, and a much more dynamic sound system. Yeah, that's right, A Hero's Tale did have a dynamic sound system to my knowledge. Also, A Hero's Tale. As in Spyro's tail. Spyro's a hero. Spyro's a dragon. He also has a tail. Nice one, Eurocom. That's listen. A+. Alright, how many of you didn't see this one coming? Show of hands. I don't see any. And if you said you didn't, then you made the fattest lie of the century, my friend. Spyro Goddamn 2 is my favourite piece of media that requires you to pick up a plastic thing with buttons on it. Spyro 2's gameplay is just so perfect for me. There are times when you do have to backtrack, yes, if you're going for 100%. But whenever I play this game, I never feel as if it's a slog to play through since the core gameplay is just so goddamn fun in itself. Well, apart from the Alchemist mission, I'll admit, but this game is more or less the same as Spyro the Dragon, except it completely revamps everything and adds way more bells and whistles than necessary. And you know what? The added detail really goes a long way. In this game you get more to play with, like the refined flight courses now called speedways, more moves that are taught to you by a greedy bear named Moneybags, new NPCs and characters to interact with so the world feels more alive, and everything in every way possible is just improved on. It's the same for how Sonic 2 overcame Sonic 1, Crash 2 overcame Crash 1, the Devil May Cry 2. Alright, maybe not that one, but you get the idea, right? It's everything a sequel should be and more. The story of this game takes place sometime after Spyro 1, when Spyro and Sparks about head out to Dragon Shores and are then stopped by 3 of Avalar's inhabitants to stop a new threat in Ripto. A short Ripto who has a growing want for power and decides to take over Avalar to rule as he sees fit. Also, one thing I noticed but never really mentioned in my review was that both Spyro and Ripto fall through a portal due to the clumsiness of the 3 Avalar inhabitants. It's actually a really nice dynamic that they both share. The music is once again Stuart Copeland's magic. Sharp font. The music is once again Stuart Copeland's magic. And you know what? Stefan Van Koff needs some credit here too. He did a phenomenal job making his tracks feel so close to the originals that it's as if Stuart himself came back to do them. And I'm not afraid to admit that some of these tracks are actually better than Stuart's himself.
It's awful, yes, very awful and
Graphics, they're good, sharp. Overall, you get the gist. It's a masterpiece and it's what I claim to be the best 3D collect-a-fun platformer of all time, as well as my favourite game of all time. Ever since I played it again in 2013 too, I've just found more and more to love about this game every single time I play it. And if you're wondering what version I personally prefer, Insomniac, you did me good in my childhood, but Toys for Bob just did everything so much better. And I'm sure you can understand. And so, my Garden Chair Army, that is what we call a best to worst. Have one yourself, feel free to do so in the comments below if you like. What else does Watch Mojo say? Subscribe, that'd be sweet too. Alright, we're done now. See you next time when I review Sonic Heroes. Also, yeah, I get, alright, we didn't get DLC for Reignited, I understand, alright, I done goofed, I was just being optimistic, okay, I didn't say it was coming. Maybe we'll get something pretty soon, who knows. I mean, at least we have the CTR stuff right now, but... okay. Anyway, thanks for watching, and, yeah, bye.